This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with Ilya Senchuk from Leaning Post Winery. I actually think this gentleman in front of me is one of the most interesting and exciting winemakers to come out of Niagara in quite some time. I've been a great fan of his wines, and particularly his Pinots and his Gamay. So this morning we're here in a new location for Good Food Revolution. We're going to put Ilya through a bit of an interrogation. I hope you're up for that.
I am, absolutely.
Ilya, what was it that drew you towards the winemaking side of things?
It's interesting, actually. I read an article. So I was doing a degree in just general science, University of Manitoba, and really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was kind of already interested in culinary. Was really interested in the food side of things. Already into food and wine, and I discovered the Brock program in St. Catharines.
Right.
It was a university degree, so I had done 2 years of science already, so I could basically just shift over right into that program. And essentially I thought, I'm already kind of leaning this way. I'm going to try that and see if I like it. And that was in 1999. So I guess I like it because now I've got my own winery.
So tell us a little bit about your first steps into winemaking once you finished your course at Brock.
So what I did is I was actually in my last year, I started working for what I consider one of the best winemakers and vineyards in Niagara, for Daniel Lenko. Has some of the best old Chardonnay in the area, 50-year-old Chardonnay. Started working with him in 2002. And then just kind of was finishing up my degree, so started working there, assistant winemaker, took over as head winemaker a few years later, and then that was a great project. I was there for about 8 years, and then took over at another awesome high-end project called Foreign Affair, do a Passamento style wine, so I'd done sort of more Burgundy style wines at Daniel Lenko, and then I did really Italian style wines at Foreign Affair. Did that for almost 4 years, and then in the meantime my wife and I had a dream to start our own place. So we started Leaning Post as just a virtual Pinot project, so essentially we had no actual location, but we had made really small amounts, 100 cases of Pinot, and just released that directly to restaurants only. And that was about 3-4 years ago, and then found a beautiful property in Winona, which is a great town on the west side of Niagara, and found a beautiful old barn, old house, and basically gave Leaning Post a home. And so now I've been full-time at Leaning Post for a couple of years now, just making really what I want to do. So the coolest thing about this project is it's really me, no compromises. I don't have to worry about ownership. The ownership is just my wife and myself, and that's all we do. Is just interesting bits of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, just great varieties that I think Niagara does best. Riesling, things that we try and focus on what grows the best in Ontario. We definitely don't make everything for everybody. We just make what we think is interesting and good.
Now, I have to say that I find the style of the wines that you're producing at Leaning Post vastly different to those that you made at Foreign Affair and at Lenko. That would be a fair enough observation, would it not?
Yeah, it's interesting. The odd thing about it is I made wine at both places and I really liked them, but they were sort of, when you work at a place like that, the context is set for you before you come in. You've been given the parameters of the kind of wine you're going to make. And then what I tried to do was make the most interesting wine within the parameters that ownership already had, which I loved, and I thought we made really interesting wines there. But the interesting thing to me is when I was essentially kind of, freed of that, for lack of a better term, when I made my own place, my wines turned out much more sort of Burgundian and French than I had thought, given what I was making before. What I was making before would probably be turned more New Worldy, or certainly more... like in the case of Foreign Affair, much more Amarone, sort of big Italian,
of course, yes, yeah.
That kind of style, which I like as well. And I just, the interesting thing to me is I really like well-made wine, so it really kind of doesn't matter the style. But when I was kind of released of that, it turns out that I like sort of really French-style wines. There's no way around that. I didn't know that when I made these wines, interestingly. When I started making this project, I just sort of did it. And then when the wines turned out, that's what everybody said. They're like, wow, they're really nothing like what you were doing there. And I just thought, yeah, but it's what I wanted to do, I guess.
Now, I have been quite an outspoken fan of your wines and promoted them to all manner of people. But I do find your wines to be quite polarizing. People either love them or they really find issue with them. I'm serious here.
I know that.
And you've run across that same kind of feedback yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting. I guess I would say my wines were probably more crowd pleasing at both places I worked at.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Whereas it's interesting, I think I found a little bit more of a balance of what I really love in wine. I still think my wines are, it's funny, when I taste them, I still think my wines are pretty crowd pleasing, but I think they are much more, like, they're completely reflective of my personality and what I want to say in a bottle. So by definition, that's going to cut out some people. When you start doing stuff that's a bit more, well, this is what I really want to do, never mind what other people think, there's going to be some people who aren't going to get that. That's going to be part of the deal. I think it makes the winery interesting, and fortunately we're a small enough place where we're not trying to please everybody. Like, we're certainly not big production. We're only doing, right now we're at about 1,400 cases a year. Our own vineyard is coming on stream, so that'll add another, say, 500 cases to our production. So we really want to top out around 2,000 cases a year. So I'm not sure that matters so much. I'm hoping that the people, so far so good, the people who like our stuff love our stuff and will really want to seek it out because it's so different. I mean, I do think nobody in Niagara is making wines that taste like mine, which is really the point, I think, when you're talking about wine as art as opposed to just, I don't know, making a beverage.
Perhaps some of the criticism that has been leveled at your wines when I've been trying to push them on people is they sometimes say they're not typical of the region. How do you feel about that?
Depends what you mean by typical. That's a tough one for me because I think if you put these wines next to their peers from around the world, I think they're more similar to that than what has been typically brought out of Niagara. And therefore, I don't know if that's a bad... I personally don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think these wines are of the quality and personality that is really normal in other quality regions. And I think we just haven't seen much of that yet in Niagara. I do think, I also think people forget how important the winemaker is. In the whole equation. I think we talk about terroir, we talk about grapes, we talk about all those things, which is true, but I think people forget, the winemaker is part of the terroir, for sure. The practices, when I'm picking the kind of barrels I choose, what I do or don't do with the wine, how I blend, that all affects the way it tastes. And there are people making wines out of some of the vineyards, there are other people making wines out of some of the vineyards that I'm doing it, and I think my wines reflect my personality.
Would it be fair to say that a number of your wines, your Gamay and your Pinots, have a certain funkiness about them? It's a funkiness that I happen to really, really enjoy. Other people less so.
Oh, for sure. And I do think it. The most important thing to me is I want a balance of all pieces, including funkiness. So to me, that funky, earthy, dirty kind of thing is, I think, part of wine and part of interesting wine. I don't think it should dominate a wine, but even that, even what I just said can be a continuum, and some people think that it dominates and some people don't.
Yes.
Most importantly, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, if absolutely everybody who tasted our wines thought they were the best thing they'd ever tasted, I'm not sure that you're really doing your job. I don't think there's enough personality there. I think you're being too kind of middle of the road, whatever. I'd rather that I put exactly what I want in the bottle and then told people that, and they can decide for themselves. Not everybody is going to like it. Having said that, I think the Pinots that I make in particular are extremely Pinot-y, if that is a word.
I think it is. It is now, isn't it?
Yeah, and so whatever people think, I think they're very... Those in particular are very varietally typical.
Ilya, I thoroughly enjoy all of your wines and all the funk that comes along with them. Thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. We look forward to tasting through the rest of your Pinots sometime very soon. Bye for now.
Thanks.